I Have a Banana, a Good Omens fanfiction, written by AppleSeeds, read aloud by SkyAsimaru. If you enjoy this podfic, you can check out the original story on Archive of Our Own. If you would like to hear more of my recordings or see some of my own work, you can find me through the pen and screen name of SkyAsimaru. I Have a Banana. Summary. Crowley can't believe his luck when the most gorgeous man he's ever seen approaches him in a bar and asks if he'd like to eat his banana. Crowley flopped down onto the bar stool, rubbing his hand across his forehead, the dizziness subsiding.
What's wrong with you? You not eatin' anything again? I'm fine. Stop buzzing around me. I had a busy day,
Crowley grumbled.
If I'm going to be carrying you home, I want it to be because you got completely shit-faced, not because you passed out from starvation. Yeah, come on. I just got a bit dizzy. It's no big deal. We can get some chips or something later. Or we could go now, and I could force some food down your throat.
B.A. folded their arms across their chest, threateningly, and glowered at him. Crowley was about to object and insist once again that he was fine, but his attention was diverted by a gentle touch to his arm. He glanced to the side and found himself face to face with quite possibly the most attractive man he'd ever seen in his life, all fluffy blonde curls and twinkly eyes, and a smile that made Crowley feel like he was the only person in the room. Crowley literally started salivating and licked his lips. "Excuse me. Good evening."
Oh, wow.
Just hearing those 4 words in the man's voice was doing things to Crowley that weren't in the least bit objectionable. He was so polite and softly spoken, gazing intently into Crowley's eyes, making his heart flutter and his stomach swoop. Crowley put on his most charming smile and tilted his chin up in acknowledgement.
Hi,
he drawled. "Hello, I have a banana."
You what?
Crowley blinked, his charming smile morphing into a grin. "I have a banana in my pocket, if you'd like to eat that." Crowley bit down on his bottom lip and hungrily raked his eyes up and down over the man's body. He looked completely out of place in this shitty bar, dressed like he'd been intending to attend a fancy dinner, but had shown up about 2 centuries too late. He was far too sophisticated for a place like this, with his velvet waistcoat, which Crowley was already picturing getting his hands on to feel if it was as soft as it looked, a powder blue shirt buttoned right up to the top, but with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and the look finished off with an immaculately fastened tartan bow tie, which had absolutely no business being as hot as it was.
Yeah, all right,
Crowley replied with a wink, shooting B.A. a smug smirk before hopping off the bar stool, taking the man's hand and leading him across the room to a quiet corner not far from the dance floor.
What's your name?
Aziraphale.
Fuck! Even his name is hot. I'm Crowley. Want to dance first?
Oh, I'm afraid I don't dance. Well, not to this kind of music, and I really do think you ought to eat something before you exert yourself, my dear.
Keen, aren't you?
Crowley said with a grin, savoring the thrill of the encounter, the posh, formal way Aziraphale was speaking to him, augmenting his excitement.
Sit with me for a bit?
Ah, yes, all right. Crowley squeezed Aziraphale's hand and guided him to one of the unoccupied booths, sliding in and gently tugging on his hand, encouraging him to sit beside him. Aziraphale left a gap between them that Crowley was eager to eliminate.
Thanks for coming over to talk to me.
Oh, well, I was just about to get a drink, you see, and I overheard you talking to your friend? Crowley shrugged and scrunched his face up non-committally.
Yeah, okay. Just don't let them hear you say it. Bane of my existence would be more accurate.
Well, they seemed very concerned about your well-being, and I wanted to help. I always like to be of service when I can.
Well, aren't you sweet? You're like an angel.
Crowley shuffled a little closer and lightly stroked Aziraphale's delectable exposed forearm with his fingertips. Aziraphale gasped and stared intently at Crowley's hand, an unexpected response from someone who had been so forward. Crowley hesitated.
This okay?
Yes, thank you. Reassured, Crowley grinned and leaned in close, lowering his voice to a quiet murmur.
My pleasure. So, this banana you'd like to feed to me, what's it like? Nice and firm, I hope.
Oh, yes, certainly, and a very good size. It should fill you up quite nicely. Crowley tried to bite back his grin a little bit, but it was proving very difficult. He'd never had anyone flirt with him quite like this before, but it was definitely working for him. Aziraphale seemed so sweet and innocent, prim and proper, exuding a genuinely caring aura, yet evidently there was a lot more going on beneath the surface.
I really like the sound of that. I bet it's delicious. It's been a while since I've had a nice, big banana to fill me up.
Crowley slid his hand a little higher up Aziraphale's arm, gently squeezing his bicep. Aziraphale visibly swallowed, a slight blush dusting his cheeks.
Oh, well, that's just fucking adorable. You here alone?
Crowley watched the movement of Aziraphale's shoulders as he inhaled deeply. He seemed like he might actually be nervous, which was hard for Crowley to understand. After all, he'd been the one to boldly make the first move, which Crowley was immensely grateful for. He'd have taken one look at Aziraphale and immediately determined that he was out of his league. But now he seemed quite shy and bashful. No, I'm here with some of my colleagues. One of them is celebrating her 40th birthday.
You don't sound too happy about it.
Aziraphale sighed, and Crowley started gently stroking his arm again. No, I'm afraid I don't get on very well with them. Crowley shuffled closer so that their thighs were touching, and slipped his arm around Aziraphale's back, savoring the heat radiating off him. He inhaled deeply, breathing in Aziraphale's intoxicating scent as he leaned in close to whisper in his ear.
Good thing I'm here to keep you company then, isn't it?
Aziraphale's breathing quickened as Crowley lightly brushed his lips against his cheek. Aziraphale made a small sound like an appreciative sigh, and his hand found Crowley's waist, his touch burning through Crowley's shirt, fueling his excitement. A significant amount of Crowley's blood was diverted to his abdomen, and he was left reconsidering his decision to wear such tight jeans. Yes, thank you. I'm very grateful.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And don't worry, I'll take very good care of you. And your banana.
Oh, yes, I really should give it to you. Aziraphale released his hold on Crowley's waist, and his hand reached down towards his trousers. Crowley moved a little way away from him.
Here?
Oh, do you think it's against the rules? Crowley laughed incredulously.
Probably.
Well, I won't tell anyone if you don't. Crowley nibbled on his bottom lip and glanced around to see if anyone was watching, his heart vibrating like a jackhammer in his chest. They were in a pretty dark, private corner of the bar, but still, he couldn't quite believe that this sweet, innocent angel of a man was proposing that he... Aziraphale placed a banana on the table and pushed it across towards him, with a twinkle in his eye like he was doing something clandestine. I don't see how the establishment could reasonably have a problem with it. It isn't as though they're serving food at this hour. Crowley withdrew his arm from around Aziraphale and stared at the table, discreetly shuffling away to create a little bit of distance between them.
That's a banana. That's an actual banana. Oh, fuck. Why do you have a banana?
Crowley asked, his voice emerging a bit more squeaky than he would have liked.
It's an actual fucking banana!
Oh, I'm afraid my boss is rather insistent that we don't use inebriation as an excuse to sully the temples of our bodies. So he handed them out at the beginning of the evening so that we wouldn't be tempted to go for a takeaway afterwards. I have to say, working with him is a complete nightmare. He makes us do exercises every morning and refers to it as a well-being break. And he insisted that the cafeteria stop serving cakes. My Wednesday afternoon Victoria sponge was the only thing getting me through the middle of the week.
Shit. He sounds like a wanker.
Yes, well, at least this will do you some good, Aziraphale said, his voice brightening a little as he nudged the banana a little more towards Crowley.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Crowley picked up the banana and started to peel it. He was tempted to start eating it provocatively, but his confidence was wavering. Now he knew that Aziraphale had just genuinely been trying to offer him food because he'd been concerned. He hadn't actually been suggesting. Crowley grimaced and hoped he hadn't made too much of a fool of himself. The realization that Aziraphale really was just sweet and caring had made Crowley want him even more. Crowley looked away from Aziraphale and bit off the end of the banana, chewing and swallowing it as quickly as he could. "Is it good?"
Very good, thanks."
"I'm glad." Crowley took another bite, chewing a bit more slowly this time, as he tried to work out what to say. No wonder Aziraphale had reacted the way he had when Crowley had touched him. Although, by some miracle, he had seemed receptive. Crowley swallowed his mouthful of banana and took a deep breath.
"I thought you meant something else," he confessed.
"I'm sorry?"
"When you said you had a banana I could eat, I thought you meant something else."
Aziraphale's eyebrows knitted together and his brow furrowed, and Crowley looked at him with wide eyes, trying to communicate what he was thinking without actually enduring the mortifying ordeal of actually saying it. He gave a discreet nod in the direction of Aziraphale's trousers, and after a few more seconds of contemplation, Aziraphale's eyes widened too. "Oh!"
"Yeah, sorry."
"Oh, my goodness, I would never! That would be terribly rude to approach someone and ask them to do such a thing." Crowley's heart sank into his stomach, and he could feel the heat rising in his cheeks.
"Oh, fuck. I know. I'm so sorry."
"I mean, one might offer, perhaps, but certainly not ask." Crowley blinked, his mouth opening and closing a couple of times.
Yeah. Anyway, so, I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable at all when I was, touching you."
"Oh, no, not at all. I was rather surprised, but I enjoyed it very much." Crowley let out a long breath of relief, unable to stop himself from reciprocating the sweet smile that Aziraphale was giving him.
"Thank you. I really am sorry. I just thought you were flirting with me. And you're gorgeous. And you seemed really nice. And honestly, I couldn't believe my luck."
"Oh, that's very kind of you to say."
Do you think I could tempt you to abandon your colleagues and go off with me instead? You could sully the temple of your body as much as you want."
Aziraphale laughed softly. "Temptation accomplished. Just to be clear, I'd be quite happy for you to sully the temple of my body, too." Crowley took a deep breath and ignored the direction his mind took him in response to those words. He'd have to have been a complete idiot not to have learnt that lesson.
"Are you asking me if I'd like to make you dinner?"
"I actually had something else in mind," Aziraphale replied, his voice deep and low, his hand now resting on Crowley's thigh and squeezing gently before climbing a little higher, his fingertips brushing against what definitely wasn't a banana in Crowley's pocket.
"Let's get out of here, Angel."
The end. Thank you for reading. Please drop by the archive and let the author know what you thought of their work.